Yeah, well, this is a not uncommon constellation of tastes for classical musicians to be attracted to new music and early music. Um, Not that there's a distaste for music from Haydn to, let's say, Wagner, uh, but it just doesn't really attract us as much. So there are many musicians who feel this way. I mean, the first one that pops into my head is the really great bass baritone Nicholas Isherwood, who is based in Europe. He's American, but he's lived in Europe for many years. And if you look at his recording catalog and his performances, it seems to be, all sort of like Renaissance madrigals and Baroque opera, and then this big gap, and then just really like the most fascinating and experimental 20th and 21st century music. And there are many people that feel this way. I've talked to him. I had the chance to meet him and work with him because he was doing a semester of a semester-long residency at Cal Arts when I was studying there. And he had some ideas on this front. I don't want to like misquote him or anything, but if I tried to sum up our conversation, it just seems like these two realms of music history, in terms of the European tradition, they seem to have more room for the performer to provide their own sort of creative input. Now, I'm sure specialists in Mozart and Brahms would probably want to get in on this Zoom meeting and say, no, you just don't understand how much room there is in Mozart for your own personal voice.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in terms of, Baroque ornamentation is a wide open subject that is sort of open for improvisation and creativity. Certainly for myself as a lute player, and especially a theorbo player, like this idea of playing basso continuo, which was like the Baroque rhythm section, almost like in a jazz group. You're
Mm-hmm.
basically getting a series of chord changes that the performer has to, fully make up on the spot. And so that's just a huge area for creativity and spontaneity. And then, certainly in new music, not only do you have aleatoric music and graphic scores, but just sometimes the sheer complexity of a score from a 20th or 21st century composer just sort of requires so much intellectual and creative work on the part of the performer that even if you're realizing something that's quite concrete and detailed, you feel like you brought so much of yourself to simply decoding the score and then encoding it into your own playing of it. That, I don't know, it just gives me personally a sense that I'm really deeply involved with what's happening. Whereas if I'm playing something from the early 1800s, sometimes it can feel like the musical language is so homogenous that, I can kind of sit there and sight read it and it sounds really nice. And, I kind of like, it's over and I'm like, okay, I just played that. But I didn't really have to bring all of my being to do it. Whereas with Renaissance and Baroque music and new music, I certainly do.
Gotcha. What percentage of your playing would you say is the modern guitar, and like how much time do you spend on these older instruments?
So the answer to that question would really change based on what year you're asking.
Gotcha.
So you're asking me now in April 2020. And so right now, I would say 100% of my time playing and recording and practicing is on a fully modern, quote unquote, classical guitar, but like the modern Spanish guitar, whatever this weird instrument is that I play. It's 100% on that instrument with the interchangeable fretboards that I've been making with my company, Microtone Guitars. So sometimes I will be using a fretboard that's a standard, normal 12-tone equal tempered fretboard that, almost every guitar on the planet has. And more often than not, I'll have some non-traditional fretboard on there, but I'm playing on that instrument all the time. If you asked me in 2010 or 2011, right, like a decade ago, I'd say maybe it was more around 50-50 between playing a modern classical guitar versus playing lute or theorbo or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like year by year, my musical life is just constantly flowing in different directions. And it's really taken a strong turn towards this instrument with these fretboards.